Well, those were the headlines that we are tracking this evening. You're watching CNBC TV 18 and this is Reporter's Diary. Let's get straight to the market action of the day. Strong Asian cues. Some markets kicked off the week on a strong footing, but a weak breath could be concerned for the bulls. So the Nifty flirted with the 11,000 mark but ended off the high point of the day. Sensex rallied about 0.5%. Amongst the broader markets, banks ended with gains of 0.25%. Mid-caps underperformed today. That index ended about 4% in the red. Now, the world's rich and powerful have arrived at Davos in Switzerland for the annual World Economic Forum, which kicked off today. The key also were Brexit, slowing growth in China, globalization and free trade will dominate conversations this time. Another crucial topic is the growing inequality across the world. The latest report by the global non-profit Oxfam shows that the 26 richest people own as much wealth as the poorest 50% of humanity. In India, the richest 9 people own as much wealth as the bottom 50% in the country. Oxfam is pitching for a 1% wealth tax and can raise over $400 billion, which is enough to educate every child in the world who is currently not in school and provide healthcare that can prevent 3 million deaths annually. Shireen Bhane is joining in from Davos with the highlights of the Oxfam report and what we can expect at the World Economic Forum this year. Shireen, what's the mood like?
Well, the Oxfam Wealth Report is creating headlines here, which is usual because they do this ahead of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Is this new, so to speak, that the rich are getting richer? Not particularly. This has been the trend that we've seen over the last few years. The conversation around inequality will, of course, take centre stage here in Davos, but the criticism has been that you've got the world's rich and famous gathering to talk about issues like inequality, and hence perhaps we haven't really arrived at a real meaningful solution. What Oxfam is suggesting is a 1% wealth tax. Again, not a new demand. This has been a conversation that has happened in the past as well. Will governments move towards that is the question. Bill Gates is going to be talking about investing in human capital. Remember, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation produces the Goalkeepers report, which does a reality check on how we are managing on education and healthcare related goals, as well as climate change, which continues to be a topic of focus here. In terms of heads of state, President Trump has given Davos a miss. Prime Minister Modi is not going to be here this year. Theresa May, on account of what's happening with Brexit and Plan B, has given Davos a skip as well. And Macron, because of the trouble in France, is not here either. But there will be other heads of state, including Japan's Shinzo Abe. Global business leaders will be here, largely networking as well as attending some of the sessions here at the World Economic Forum. The Indian delegation will be led by the Confederation of Indian Industry. The government representation will be spearheaded by the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. The Secretary Ramesh Abhishek and Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant will be doing their outreach here in Davos. Oil and gas, India is putting up a big show of strength here. ONGC, GAIL, IOC, HPCL, BPCL, all represented here and trying to pitch the India story. Remember, FDI inflows into the oil and gas sector in India over the last few years haven't really been very much to speak of. So it is going to be an interesting sales pitch that they hope to make here. We will, of course, be tracking all the action. But for now, I hand it back to you.
All right, Shireen, we'll keep coming back to you for all the action from the World Economic Forum. Now, our special coverage of the World Economic Forum will feature the top brass of the International Monetary Fund at 6:30 p.m. today, including the new chief economist, Geeta Gopinath. The IMF is set to release its World Economic Outlook with a press conference, and we will be live in Davos. Just after that, Geeta Gopinath will join Shireen Bhane for an exclusive interview at 8:10 p.m. this evening. So keep it with CNBC TV 18. Well, here is the big story dominating the conversation in Davos. China's economic slowdown is now official. In 2018, the economy grew at 6.6%. This is the slowest pace of growth in nearly 3 decades. The Chinese government has been calling this a managed slowdown, and markets seem to be buying that, with most Asian indices ending in the green even after the growth data was released. So let's pull that up for you. The Shanghai is up by about 0.5%. The Hang Seng was up by about 0.3%, and Nikkei gaining about 53 points as we speak. China is also engaged in an Asian spat with the United States, which has come as a double whammy with consumer confidence already on the wane. CNBC Eunice Yoon reports from Beijing on the latest GDP data and how Chinese officials are reacting to it.
The Chinese Statistics Bureau attempted to put a positive spin on the numbers, saying that China's growth is still stronger than Europe's, the U.S., or Japan's, and that this year would see reasonable growth. However, most economists expect the economy here to slide further, with Beijing stimulus measures kicking in by the second quarter at the earliest and more likely in the second half of the year. 2018 GDP was 6.6%, and growth in the fourth quarter indicated weakening momentum, coming in at 6.4%. Fixed asset investment missed, up 5.9% instead of the 6% that analysts were looking for. Real estate FAI growth slowed. Property is a big driver for the economy and an indicator for future construction activity. December factory output numbers and retail sales held up pretty well, up 5.7% and 8.2%, beating or meeting expectations, but still down compared to earlier in the year. One important data point for Beijing policymakers, unemployment. The jobless rate rose to 4.9% for December from 4.8% in November. Part of that is because of weakness in the export sector. Uncertainty triggered by the threat of U.S. tariffs caused some companies to delay investments and hiring. The Statistics Bureau said that Beijing would continue to roll out new measures to help stabilize the economy as authorities here battle what the Bureau described as an external environment that is complicated and difficult. Eunice Yoon, CNBC Business News, Beijing.
All right, Eunice, thanks for joining in with that. Now from Beijing to the big story in London, British Prime Minister Theresa May is expected to present a Plan B in a bid to end the uncertainty surrounding the country's exit from the European Union. European markets are largely moving sideways as investors await the new plan from Theresa May. This comes just days after her earlier proposal was overwhelmingly junked by the British Parliament. Britain has just under 70 days before the March 29th deadline to leave the European Union and find a consensus on an exit plan. Before that is very crucial. Back home, initial 12 insolvency and bankruptcy cases should be behind us by the end of this fiscal. That's the word coming in from Corporate Affairs Secretary Injeti Srinivas. Speaking to CNBC TV 18's Timothy Jaipuriya after a review of the cases under IBC, the Secretary also talked about the kind of patience lenders have shown so far in the insolvency process and expressed hope that banks wouldn't give up just yet.
We have taken a complete review, comprehensive review of all these cases and tried to identify where the bottlenecks are, why the delays are taking place. And broadly, with all stakeholders, we have been able to arrive at a very good strategy, a plan and approach to ensure that in the next 3 months or so, we should be able to bring them to a finality and put this Big 12 behind us. Because I think some of them I see as teething problems. There have been some teething problems. Some of these issues are part of the evolving process where some structural issues need to be addressed. But I think I'm very positive. I see a very strong possibility that the primary object of the code will be realized, and this will set the foundation for speedy resolution. And I expect that in future even that 180 days should suffice. You may not really have to stretch cases for an additional 90 days. So yeah, we are very positive.
Well, sticking to this pace and contradictorily in what comes as a fresh setback for debt-ridden IL&FS rating agency CRISIL has downgraded the non-convertible debentures of a road project in Jharkhand. And that's not all. The broader story is what's critical here. CRISIL has warned that this project and other projects are likely to stop interest rate payments contrary to the company's previous stance. Lata Venkatesh is here to explain the significance of this move. Lata, what are the highlights that have been pointed out? And, what does this also mean for this area going forward?
Yeah, what CRISIL has done is it has downgraded the debentures of this SPV. An SPV is like 100%, not 100%, it's a subsidiary of the big IL&FS. This one is not a subsidiary of IL&FS, it's a subsidiary of a subsidiary. IL&FS owns IL&FS Transportation Networks, and this SPV, Jharkhand Power, is a subsidiary of this IL&FS Transportation Networks. Now, all these various SPVs used to have an escrow account. That is, all the money coming from this road project, for instance, the toll collection, are put in an escrow account, and from that account, the loans given to this project were serviced. Now, after the NCLAT passed its order last October, it looks like it has been, passed down, And the management of Jharkhand Power, Jharkhand Road, has written to their trustees, that is IDBI trustees, who normally manage this escrow account and pay all the money, has told them stop this debt payment because the order of the NCLAT says somewhere that because of, clause 6 of that order apparently, that's what CRISIL says in the order that all payments should be stopped, till a resolution is done of the entire process. Now, this is this letter written by the Jharkhand Road Projects Management to its trusteeship is a letter which is now known to CRISIL, and knowing this, CRISIL is expecting Jharkhand Road Projects to not pay. Whether it pays or not, we should know by end of day today or tomorrow, whether it has already defaulted. Now, that is the problem of those who hold Jharkhand Road Project paper. All the SPVs will have the same problem, because if the management is following the NCLAT order, it stands to reason that it will apply the same thing to all the SPVs. Originally, that was not the stand of the management of the various SPVs. They said we have escrowed money and we are, our income is more than our expenditure. It's escrowed amount, and so those who have loaned to us will get the money. But on Jan 4th, this letter went from Jharkhand Road Project to its trustee. CRISIL learned of it on Jan 15th, and therefore it has put out this note, and we will know shortly whether actually the default has happened or not. The trouble is for all the SPVs, possibly, because they will stop. It is quite possible that the government or ILNFS new management will move the NCLAT and seek permission to change this. I mean, all this could happen. This could be a temporary misfortune or a temporary lack of payment, but we don't know. At the moment, all we know is that CRISIL has downgraded from AA to BB. Now, what will happen when the actual default happens? It will go to D. It has not yet gone to D. It is still at BB, but it can happen in a few days. It can happen in 24 hours. It can happen in 48 hours, the downgrade. So this could be a temporary discomfiture. If the government or the ILNFS management moves the NCLAT and requests a reversal, that the SPVs should not be affected, that the problem should be restricted to the holding company, that could take any length of time. For the moment, it's uncertainty. So mutual funds who hold that paper will be in a jam because their NAV will fall. So all investors who are redeeming now will suddenly find that the amount of money they're getting back is less. Banks which are going to declare results, I think their third quarter may be safe, but fourth quarter, they will have to declare this loan as not standard. Yeah. All these things could happen. It's not a very happy thing. At the moment, it's only come to BB. But the way the CRISIL note is written, it looks like it's a D is imminent.
Okay, we'll know the repercussion in the days to come. Thanks, Lata, for breaking that down for us. But here's another critical story. We learned that Kotak Mahindra Bank may look at an out-of-court settlement with RBI on the promoter shareholding matter. Ritu Singh is here with the exclusive details. Ritu, what are your sources telling you? What are the options now?
Well, the substance of the matter is that, yes, this case is sub judice. Currently, after Kotak Mahindra Bank moved the Bombay High Court against RBI, on this issue of promoter shareholding, we understand now that the talks continue with RBI, and the bank officials believe that an out-of-court settlement is something that could be one of the many outcomes that they're staring at this point of time. Do remember, during the last hearing on the 17th of January, the case was adjourned to mid-March sometime. And therefore, for the next 2 months, there's not really much action expected, on this particular matter. But as far as the bank is concerned, they believe it is possible if, it's mutually agreeable to both the parties, that is to Reserve Bank of India and to Kotak Mahindra Bank, to take this matter out of court and discuss it, because, that has been one of the main grouses of Kotak Mahindra Bank, as it was said, by their counsel in court, that, they haven't heard back from RBI about what their belief is and why the cumulative preference share issuances was in line and in spirit of the RBI shareholding norms on bringing down promoter stake by, 10% as of December 2018. So this is what they believe as of now is one of the possible solutions. Of course, this will be good news, really, because this could expedite matters. But then again, there's no commitment from the bank yet if this is the only outcome that is possible, but it definitely is something that is on the table.
Okay, Ritu, thanks for breaking that down for us. We'll, of course, have Ritu back in a few hours to get us more details on that. But we are just a little over 10 days from the budget 2019. And as we count down, North Block has marked the beginning of the budget document printing with the customary halwa ceremony, after which officials who are directly associated with the budget making and printing are cut off from their families till the presentation of the budget. All right, time now for a very short break. But up next, a special discussion on Supreme Court's decision to expand the scope of Dieselgate investigation. Stay tuned for that.
All right, the big development from the Supreme Court today. It was a relief for Volkswagen as well, which has been at the center of that emission scandal since 2015. In fact, today the Supreme Court said that there is no occasion for punitive action to be taken against directors of VW. They also said that the NGT, the National Green Tribunal, should not have asked Volkswagen to submit the sum of 100 crores within a day when the matter was pending in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had also given an extension. The SC also said the tribunal will examine the findings of the report, and Volkswagen has been given 3 weeks to reply and file objections as well. The court also noted that the tribunal, that is the National Green Tribunal, can consider whether a similar probe be undertaken against other vehicle manufacturers as well. This when Volkswagen maintained in court that they meet all emission norms, the BS4 norms, and why are they being singled out? Investigations should also happen against other OEMs. So that was one of the major developments in court today. Joining us right now to take this forward is the petitioner in this case, Sanjeev Elavadi. He's joining us on the phone. We're also joined by Anumita Roy Chaudhary, who is the Executive Director for Research and Advocacy, Center for Science and Environment. Anumita Roy Chaudhary, your first thoughts on this, the court saying that it's now up to the National Green Tribunal to see whether a similar probe can be undertaken against other OEMs.
I think it's a very important development because I am not looking at the Volkswagen case only as a criminal case. I think we have to take it up to entirely different level altogether to bring laws to fix manufacturers' responsibility for real-world emission performance of vehicles on the road. And this is a rule that we still do not have in our country yet. So today, the responsibility of the manufacturer stops at the factory gate. The moment the vehicles come out on the road, their responsibility ends for the lifelong performance of the vehicles and emission control system. Globally, we have a system called recall system.
Yeah.
And you must remember that the new motor vehicle amendment bill that is now with the Rajya Sabha has actually proposed that recall program. These things should be immediately notified, and we also need laws against cheating devices.
You mean laws? You mean emission norms? You mean emission norms should not be limited only to lab testing, also for on-road testing?
Absolutely. And manufacturers should be made liable, accountable, and responsible for the lifelong performance of emission control systems on the road.
Okay. Sanjeev, if I can get you in, we have been trying to speak to OEMs. We've been trying to speak to industry bodies like SIAM, ACMA. They've all refused to respond, saying that it's too early. They would like to see the fine print of this order. But initially, the reaction that is coming in is that why should we be dragged in? The matter was against Volkswagen. So how do you respond to that argument that most OEMs feel that they meet all emission norms, all BS4 norms, and there is always going to be a difference of about 4 to 5% in lab testing and what you see on the roads, because a vehicle's performance on the roads is absolutely different?
Hi, good evening. Now, first of all, as far as this 4 or 5% that is being talked, that is absolute misnomer. As a matter of fact, the tests which were conducted on Volkswagen Group vehicles showed that their pollution norms increased by as much as 4 to 9 times. Now, that is a substantial increase. Now, there was a report which was conducted by ARAI, and the ARAI report went to the extent of saying that up to 2.2 times higher on the road would have been a very normal phenomena. But for them to go up by as much as 4 to 9 times is a very phenomenal transgression from what the expected norms are. Now, here at this point of time, I would like to say one more thing. Firstly, Volkswagen is one of the world's largest automobile manufacturers. Secondly, please don't ever forget that Volkswagen at some point of time used to hold 20% equity shareholding in Suzuki, and vice versa. Suzuki also held a 20% equity shareholding in Volkswagen. So this is something which is actually a major cause of concern, because as such, Suzuki continues to be India's largest automobile manufacturer. Now, if going away further, forgetting the quantum of vehicles which Volkswagen has sold in India and whether other automobile manufacturers are right or wrong, what I would like to say is that the atmosphere that we live in is a common shared atmosphere. The pollution which takes place in USA causes as much global warming affecting people in India as it causes anywhere. NGT itself is a technical body. NGT consists of expert members. NGT's decision is a well-reasoned decision. NGT has on its board environmentalists who are having specific domain knowledge. So vis-a-vis an ordinary court, it is a court which has specific domain intelligence. So their decision is a very worthwhile decision as far as the report. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you know, because we're running out of time, I'd like to just put in one more quick question, because the tribunal will now give its findings on the report, and Volkswagen will be given time to reply as well and file its objections. Two important things that the court said today. There is no occasion for punitive action to be taken against directors of VW, and the NGT should not have asked VW to submit the sum of 100 crores within a day when the matter was pending in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had given an extension. So, being a petitioner in this case, what is your strategy going to be? What will be the stand that you'll now take before the National Green Tribunal?
You see, as far as the strategy is concerned, please let me tell you, there is no individual grudge against any automobile manufacturer. Something which is being done for society at REM, and it is my responsibility as a citizen in terms of the fundamental duties enshrined in the Constitution. All of us are responsible to protect the environment. I am doing my little bit. So, as far as the strategy is concerned, the final court order is not yet out. It's very difficult for us to perceive things at this moment. I would like to say one last thing, that finally Indian courts, Indian systems are getting up to acknowledge the fact that the wrongs which have been done would have to be remedied. I would also say one thing. As far as Volkswagen is concerned, it's lived in constant world of denial. They always thought they had done no wrong. They always said so even in U.S. courts. Today they have paid a fine of $4.5 billion there. So this is something for them to understand. The wrongs that they have done, they will have to pay for it, one. Number two, if other automobile manufacturers are similarly aggrieved and they're doing similar wrongs, they would better line up. Number three, the environment that I'm living in. If you pollute in USA, you pollute in Pakistan, I am getting affected.
Okay, thanks very much, Sanjeev and Anumita Roy Chaudhary, for joining us. So we're getting you those quick responses, but we're yet to see a response from the industry body SIAM, also the Automobile Components Association, ACMA, hasn't responded. We've also not seen a response from Volkswagen so far. It seems that all of them want to see the fine print of this order before reacting. Thank you very much for watching.